All right. So we're here today with Evan Ostfeld, my good friend, work comp attorney. We met with Alan Shankman.
Yes.
At a buffet at the casino.
The Isle
Casino. Correct. Buffet, like probably 10 years ago.
Sounds about right.
Yeah. And so you do work comp cases. You do some personal injury as well.
Correct.
Your office is in Coral Springs.
Coral Springs, I handle cases statewide. I'm also licensed in Texas, so I handle cases as well.
I didn't know that. See, 10 years, I didn't know that.
Well, that's just recently.
Okay, cool. A lot of people going to Texas.
The law is not very favorable there.
Really? For work comp or PI?
Both.
Oh, okay. Huh. Okay. I feel like, is it all these, the open borders? Is that what it is?
I only had to take one test over, the MPRE. And I already had a lot of clients that were from Texas.
Okay.
So it made a logical jump to see if I could get in. Okay. I already had some connections there and some cases there. Okay. So now I'm trying to market to Texas.
Okay. All right. Cool. That's awesome. Cool. So tell us a little bit about yourself. The fans want to know. Okay. Where'd you where'd you grow up? Where'd you go to school?
Sure. Originally a New Yorker, like a lot of Floridians. I've been here since 1978. I went to...
You're not one of those post-pandemic New Yorkers.
Oh, no.
Okay.
No, I've been here since 78.
Okay.
When we only had about 4 area codes in the whole state.
Oh, wow.
So I'm pretty much native here. My kids were born here, so they're native here. Don't go back to New York that often. Most of my family relocated down here.
Okay.
So I went to college down here. I went to law school down here, and I've been practicing since 1993.
Okay. Where'd you go to law school down here?
St. Thomas.
St. Thomas. Okay, down in Miami.
Correct.
Which is now called... They rebranded.
I was not aware of that.
Benjamin Crump Law School.
Ah.
Yeah, they rebranded.
I did not know that. They didn't consult me with that, obviously.
They didn't consult with you on that, huh?
I guess they didn't care.
Yeah. I think he raised like $10 million and they rebranded just last 30 days or something. Wow. And I think Will Smith donated $1 million or something like that. So,
not the guy that was slapped.
No, that was Will Smith who did the slapping. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. That's what I meant.
Yeah. He slapped Chris Rock. Yeah. So, all right. So cool. So, you went to St. Thomas, grew up down here. You always lived in Palm Beach County, Broward County.
I started living in Dade, and a lot of Floridians, you start the migration north.
Yeah.
So I stared living in Dade and Kendall.
That was me too. I was born in Kendall Regional.
Okay. I would go to the, what was the mall? Dayland Mall by bus.
Okay.
When I couldn't drive.
There you go.
So I did that and moved to Sunrise, Broward County. Then I moved to Coral Springs.
Okay.
And for the
lot of New Yorkers in Coral Springs, Brooklyn in the house.
True. My wife's from Brooklyn.
There you go.
And since 2007, I moved to Boynton Beach.
Okay.
So I've been just north up from you.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I'm here in Delray.
So I've been there since 2007.
Okay, cool. And so you practice primarily work comp, personal injury. You started getting into mass torts as well.
More recently. That's about the last 4.5 years.
Okay.
It's like an offshoot of personal injury and a lot of the drug cases you hear or the medical devices that people have and then they find out they have a problem afterwards.
Okay.
So those clients can be nationwide. So that's I can take anybody's case for that.
Right. So, all right, cool. Let's talk about work comp first because that's something you're doing. Work comp, you represent people who are injured on the job. They are injured while they're working. Tell me a little bit about that. How does that work exactly? Someone gets injured on the job, they call you. What kind of advice do you give them?
Sure. So basically, every employee in Florida is covered by workers' comp. If the employer has 4 or more employees, they're required to have workers' comp in Florida.
Okay.
If they're in the field of construction, if they have 1 employee, they're supposed to have workers' comp. And the way workers' comp is supposed to operate is if the employee gets injured and they notify their company, their boss, they're supposed to get medical treatment at basically no cost. And if they can't work, they get a portion of their lost wages, provided the workers' comp doctor says they can't work or they can't do the same type of work. Then the checks would come from the insurance carrier. You can't go to any doctor you want, like an auto accident, unfortunately. But people need lawyers for this because a lot of times the law is very confusing to them. The doctors are very biased on behalf of the insurance companies.
Right.
So the lawyers can try to help, use whatever angles they can to get the person the best treatment, try to get a medical care, wages if they're entitled to, those type of things. So that's what I do. I don't do anything for employers. If employers call me, I'm not rude to them. I just tell them they got to contact their insurance carrier if they have one. If they don't have one, they're going to get sued. So I tell them that you need to get somebody that does defense work because you were supposed to have it and you just didn't.
Right. So with work comp, I know that the doctors are very pro insurance company. Basically, I've heard doctors say, work comp doctors, our job's to get them back to work. It's not to heal them. It's not to make them feel better. It's to get them back in the office, back on the job, working. Is that a pretty accurate statement?
Correct. I mean, they're not bad doctors per se, but because they're getting a lot of their business from the insurance companies, they don't want to bite the hand that feeds them.
Yeah.
So a lot of times they want to push the people through the system, maybe not make that referral, maybe not give them work restrictions. And like you said, you're fine, go back to work. Oh, you lost your left arm? That's fine. Just go to work with your right arm.
Yeah.
So a lot of times, you don't get the best treatment. And that's the biggest battle.
Yeah.
Because the clients are not getting any better and they feel the system is abandoning them.
Yeah. So that's where you come into play is one, you give them advice as part of their legal representation. You guide them along the way. You help them out with their questions, inform them about what their rights are. And then sometimes you can advocate for them with the doctor, with the insurance company to maybe get them that referral. Is that what that is?
Correct. Do we tell them things that they have to plant the seed for the doctor to try to get that extra step? Maybe they need the MRI. Maybe they need the orthopedist.
Yeah.
Because usually the first line of doctors they give you is what I call like a doc in a box. They send you to a walk-in clinic. There's 1 million people in the waiting room. They see you for 5 minutes and they want you out the door.
Right.
Then so you try to go back and you try to get them to say, oh, I need a specialist, or let me get an MRI first.
Right.
And then if something comes back where the MRI shows there's something, or the guy has enough complaints, all right, we'll get you the orthopedist. And then you can get away from what I call like the witch doctors, stop that level of care. And then you go to the next level. So hopefully you'll get better treatment there. Not always, but at least you pass the first line of the treatment.
Okay. Yeah. It's like my mom, she wanted an MRI and the doctor's like, I'm not going to give you an MRI. It's Medicare. And they're like, no, we're not going to do one. And she goes, no, I want one. And they go, no. She goes, and if you know my mom will get that MRI. And so she ended up getting the MRI she wanted because she advocated for herself. A lot of the people that are injured on the job, maybe they're just normal people who's trying to work, pay their bills, live life. They don't know that they can ask, right? Or maybe they're intimidated to ask. So someone like you can help them with that.
Sometimes what they do is the insurance company will send like a nurse, case manager with the patient, and go next thing they know, the patient's in there with this person they maybe never met before. And then they get intimidated. And then the nurse case manager tries to talk over the patient. And the next thing the patient knows, that their care may have been cut off. They don't get the referral because the nurse is butting into the business of the patient and trying to direct the doctor to listen to the nurse as opposed to listening to the patient.
Right.
So that's difficult crazy. Also. Yeah. They're an agent for the insurance company.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about maybe some of your cases that you've had in the past that you've done. Maybe, every lawyer likes to talk about the biggest settlement they ever had or whatever, but what's the most impactful case that you've had, or a case that's important to you where you feel like you did an amazing job for that client? It doesn't have to be about the money, but it could be about maybe you benefited them in some way that was meaningful for them.
Sure. So I think of myself as like,
too.
Well, that's true. Too. That's true. And there's always fees at the end if it works out. So
right.
I think of myself as like the lawyer for the common man. And so I had a case years ago in the west coast of Florida, because I have cases out all over. And it was a small mom and pop operation. I think it was a landscaping company. It was the husband, it was the wife, and they had some other workers. The wife was considered the corporate officer. She was the quote owner. And the husband did a lot of the manual type work, but he was listed as an employee and he was on the workers' comp policy. So under workers' comp law, when you get injured, all the law requires you to do as the injured worker is to tell your boss. And then your boss is supposed to tell the insurance company, and that starts the process. So in this case, his boss is his wife. So I think he was in a traffic accident. He told his wife, who was the boss, and the boss told the insurance company. And the insurance company kind of like really didn't do anything about it. They said, oh, this is just an auto accident. Go through your auto policy, go through your health insurance. So I knew from the very beginning this was going to be an issue. So we had a trial, and not surprisingly, the judge said there's no case. He never told the insurance company about the accident.
Wait, the wife did tell the insurance company?
Yes, the wife did.
Oh.
It's not the employee. The employee happened to be the husband.
Okay.
But that doesn't matter. He told the wife, who's the boss.
Yeah.
The boss tells the insurance company. The insurance company is supposed to work on from there.
Yeah.
So the trial judge didn't care. He denied the case. So we went on appeal. And one of the interesting things about the appeal was every year, the first DCA, they have a big workers' compensation. I've seen you there before, and you've had booths there before.
Yeah, work comp, yeah.
They take 2 cases out of the prior year and argue an appellate case in front of everybody at the conference.
Mm-hmm.
So my case was chosen as one of the ones.
Oh, wow.
And all I remember is the defense attorney kept on saying when the judges were asking him, well, he reported it, right? Well, he reported it to himself. I'm like, he reported it to his wife, correct? Yeah, but that's like reporting it to himself. That shouldn't count. And you could tell he was so smug, and the judges did not like that answer. And so we won on appeal. So yes, we got the guy the benefits, even though he had to wait years to get his back pay. He got his medical care, and they had to pay more than one fee because they had to pay the fee for winning the case. Mm-hmm. And then because of the appellate fees, you had fees there as well. So it worked out for him. And it was something as simple as they should have just covered the claim.
Right. And it probably wasn't that big of a bill anyways.
Not initially, was it? Later on, I think he needed surgery. I don't remember if he actually had it, but they paid more fighting it than they would have just paid the claim.
Yeah.
So that worked out for him.
Okay, great. So that's an interesting case. I like that because one, it involves the work comp conference, which is tons of fun. And then two, what was it like for you sitting in the audience and them talking about your case? Was that weird?
It was great. Yeah, it was great. Yeah, it was.
You're like, that's me.
Yeah,
that's me.
Yeah, it's good to make good case law. Sometimes you make bad case law, but
it happens sometimes.
It happens.
Yeah. Don't tell me about it. I lost a PIP case years ago, and I was like, I hate this. This is bad. But it was a bad case to begin with. And they always say bad facts make bad case law, and this was a bad fact, but Abe was trying to make it a good fact, but it didn't work out that way. And it was a new area of the law. It was the EMC stuff from back in the day. It just didn't pan out, but it's all good. You got to advocate for your client. And if you're not advocating for your client, you're not really doing them the best. So kudos to you for taking that appeal. I don't know if you could say this on camera, but a lot of these work comp judges, it's like a kangaroo court, right? They're appointed. They kind of just
they're not the regular judges, correct?
Yeah, these are not elected officials. These are appointed. And when we say conservative, we don't mean liberal and conservative. We mean like pro-insurance is really what we should be saying.
Correct.
Pro-insurance, pro-employer is a good thing. But when somebody's injured on the job, they should get compensated for their injuries. That's it. We're not asking for $1 million. We're asking to pay the medical care. That's it, right? And work comp.
The whole system was set up in theory that it was supposed to be self-adjudicating. So you wouldn't have to have the necessity of having lawyers. Mm-hmm. You get injured, you go to a doctor, the doctor fills out reports, and whatever the person needs, they can't work, they get checks. Mm-hmm. But in reality, that's not what happens at all. They can fight you every step of the way. They like to deny things, delay things, diminish things. Anything insurance company can do to pay less. Listen, if I was an insurance company, I would do the same thing. The problem is this is their livelihood, these people, and they have no other choice. You can't opt out in Florida of workers' comp. Mm-hmm. Texas, you can, but Florida, you can't. Really? Okay. And almost all states, I'm sure, have a workers' comp system, some better than others. Florida is one of the worst of all the states.
Really?
Next to Texas.
Yeah. Do we at least have the lowest insurance rates on work comp or not?
Probably not. And the rates keep going down, but the lawyers get blamed. The lawyers get blamed for all these things because they say the fees make the rates go up, but the premiums have been going down. Mm-hmm. But they still want, still want more reductions. The insurance company. Why? Because they make more profit.
Right. That's right. They're always pushing for new laws. You talked about diminishing things, and that's funny because some of these doctors are absolutely unethical people. And I had a client who went to a doctor, and the doctor was an insurance company doctor for an independent exam, but we call it a compulsory medical exam, personal injury. And the the doctor said, "Hey, how you doing today?" So I'm doing fine, thank you. Doctor writes, "Patient reports he is doing fine today." And I'm like, that's just a saying. Like, how are you? "Oh, I'm having a really bad day. My neck hurts. My low back hurts. My knees are achy." Like, nobody says that. You say, "Oh, I'm doing okay." So some of these doctors are like, any little thing they could do to diminish the patient's pain, it drives me crazy. So that's a good case. Any other cases top of mind?
Sure. Then I had a case that was very sad. It worked out for the guy. the guy worked for a body shop, and the way this body shop was set up in Miami, they had different bays. Mm-hmm. So depending on where they had to go, they would take golf carts to different parts of the area where they had to work on the cars.
Oh, okay.
So one particular day, he was a passenger and his boss was driving. They're going from one bay to another. Mm-hmm. And as they're coming back, the boss makes kind of like a sharp turn on like an incline.
Oh.
And my client fell out onto the pavement and hit his head. Suffered a traumatic brain injury.
Okay.
Very serious. He's having surgery. And while he's having surgery, close to that time...
Surgery on his head?
Yeah, surgery on his head, brain surgery.
Wow.
They were ready to deny the case. So I was working on this with one of my friends, and basically we said, if you don't let them finish the operation, we'll file a civil suit for wrongful death because you're trying to kill our client. And their whole defense was the guy tried to commit suicide. So one of the defenses in workers' comp is if you try to hurt yourself, including trying to kill yourself, you're not allowed to collect. But I figured of all the ways to try to commit suicide, falling out of a golf cart, I don't think would be one of them.
Yeah.
So we fought and fought and fought, and we won. And we had to have experts, and it's just, it wasn't logical that this guy tried to kill himself when he had no past history of any type of psychiatric issues.
Was that the guy driving the cart who
No,
said
our
that?
guy. No, our guy. Oh, that was just the insurance company.
Who said that? Like, how,
the insurance
what was their basis? No basis.
They try to take statements from him, the people at the employer. Maybe there was one thing in a medical record that tried to say the guy was unhappy. Oh, so he's suicidal. We'll just use that as a defense.
It's terrible.
So it was terrible. This guy almost died, and they wanted to deny his care. And they ended up, after litigating it, he got over $1 million because of the significant injury.
Wow. So he actually got compensated for
because he couldn't work, right? Because he couldn't work ever again. He was permanently disabled. That's the only way your case turns out to be of a significant value. Because under workers' comp, you can't get money for pain and suffering.
Okay.
So it's basically wages and what future medical care you may need.
Okay, gotcha. Wow.
So that was sad, but it worked out.
He got $1 million lump sum.
Correct. It was a lump sum. I don't remember if we had to do an annuity, but it was over $1 million settlement.
Was he able to walk and ambulate?
Yeah, he made a great recovery considering he wasn't like a vegetable.
Okay.
People like that would probably look at it millions of dollars, and then you got annuities involved, and they need all kinds of assistance, maybe attending care. He wasn't to that level, fortunately. He made a great recovery considering, although his marriage fell apart, he doesn't get money for that.
Traumatic brain injuries, most common thing that people say is you had a change in your personality. And so I actually had a client who was in a golf cart and a car hit them. One of these little old ladies driving in the Villages hit his golf cart. He went flying, landed on his head, had a giant bruise right here. He saw multiple doctors. Nobody diagnosed him with a brain injury. I met him. I saw the photo of the bruise on his head. I go, "You have a brain injury. Did anyone ever say you had a change in personality?" His wife goes, "Yes." And I'm like, "What?" He was an alcoholic. He stopped drinking.
Oh, I guess that was a good thing from the accident.
Yeah, he stopped drinking. And but I don't know if his wife was still drinking. That'd be kind of it'd be kind of difficult, right? Like he stopped drinking.
Oh, drinking alone? Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be kind of, but we had a great recovery for him. But he tried resolving it with the insurance company on his own, and they didn't want to help him. And then he came to me, and first thing I said when I was looking at this case, that you got a brain injury. So change in personality probably led to that whole thing. And then obviously just the stress of that kind of medical care puts on any relationship. That's tough. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Wow. So interesting. Okay. That's wow. Do you get a lot of I feel like work comp, they lose a lot of fingers on construction sites and maybe
sometimes,
even like the deli? Do they?
The problem with that is when someone has an injury that is significant, if you lost part of your finger, that's significant. Mm-hmm. The problem is under workers' comp, unfortunately, it's not. Mm-hmm. Because the value of these cases for the most part is, all right, what kind of medical treatment? Well, if you cut off your thumb and the pain didn't go anywhere else, unless they can do a prosthetic thumb, there's really no medical care.
Right.
But if the injury became something like RSD and the pain starts traveling up your wrist to your shoulder, then it's a serious medical condition. They can treat for that.
Yeah.
So sometimes it's difficult for me to accept cases because I know in their mind they're going to be unhappy. Or if someone's pregnant and has a slip and fall, the slip and fall is compensable. If they lose their baby and they go to the hospital, they'll pay the medical bills, but you're not going to get anything for the loss of the child, and they can't get over that, which I can understand.
Right.
But the law doesn't provide for that.
Yeah,
so some of those cases I can't take because I know it will not be a happy outcome, and then they'll blame the lawyer for not getting them what they think they deserve.
Yeah. That's not to compare a human life to a dog's life, but for dog owners, if their dog is injured by another dog, let's say there was a dog fight and their dog got attacked or killed, what they don't want to understand is that, unfortunately, the value of the dog, there's only replacement value under the law. That's what the law in Florida is. It's replacement value. So if you love that dog, if that was your little baby and another big dog attacked it and it died, you can only get, under the law, money to purchase another dog of similar age and breed and stuff like that.
Correct.
So
and the medical bills. So those are cases I don't take either.
Yeah.
Because the people are not going to be happy.
Right. Yeah, they never are. And
right.
And it's an emotional thing to lose a pet. And, I own a beautiful little Yorkie. Mimi, I love you. But it's sad. It's sad because, we get those kind of calls and it's like, hey, we can't help you. I'm sorry. So interesting. Personal injury. You do regular car accidents. Do you do slip and falls? What kind of cases do you take?
Right.
For personal injury?
I do car accidents. I do slip and falls. Up until a certain point. And then when they get very complicated, especially because if the law is changing, which it is now, then I look for people like your firm, other people that litigate cases, because I want them to get better representation in terms of the litigation arena, because I didn't really start with that. My background is mostly workers' comp litigation, not personal injury
administrative
litigation.
Law, stuff like that.
Correct. It's not jury trials.
Okay.
So it's workers' comp. It's a bench trial. You have just the judge, defense attorney. It's not exciting. People don't show up to watch from the gallery. Court TV is not there doing sketches.
Suits. How do they, in that show, Suits, right? They win. I don't know if the show's still on. That was the one with Meghan Markle.
Okay.
And Harvey Specter. I don't know his real name, but his character named Harvey Specter. They sign the case, litigate the whole case, win the case within 45 minutes on TV with commercials. And I'm like, man, I wish I was on that timeline. And then they're always like, at the end, they're always drinking scotch. And I'm like, I would love to drink scotch here, but we got to work, Right. No, I know. It's just like the police shows. They get the people to confess and they solve the crime within like the hour. I'm like, that's great. Yeah. Let me tell you, Boca PD, I had a guy walk into my office, steal 3 checks from this room right here. We did a fundraiser for the Boys and Girls Club, Palm Beach County. Guy walked in. I don't know where this guy came from. Stole 3 checks off of my desk. That was for charity. Were you at the casino night?
No.
We had a casino night. We raised $15,000 for Boys and Girls Club. Stole 3 checks. Boca PD within a week had this guy nabbed. We had him on the surveillance cameras that we installed outside and stuff. And we have a camera right there that caught the guy stealing the checks. Boca PD within a week. I was impressed, man. It was just a guy. How do you find a random guy? You know? Apparently, I think the guy lives in North Miami or something. They caught him. So shout out to Boca PD. Thank you. Cool. Do you ever take any burn cases as a PI lawyer? Those are
I've had some
tough.
Workers' comp burn cases, and those are severe. And then sometimes it borders on they need to get the psychological treatment, so it's longer for them to recover.
Yeah. What kind of work environment was that they got burned? Do you remember?
I don't remember.
Yeah.
And some of them, we had a few, and the insurance company actually treated them better than some of the other type of cases. It was like a special unit of that insurance company.
Okay, like so the fall cases, they treat them kind of bad probably. Because they're like, oh, you already had low back pain. You're just trying to
they treated the guy pretty good.
Wow.
But he still needed me, so it worked out.
Okay, cool. That's awesome, man. I like that. We, as plaintiffs lawyers, we kind of fight for the normal working class, blue collar employee. If these people didn't get in an accident, they'd be happier for it, but they're in an accident. They don't understand the laws, and they need people like us, which I like that feeling. I've never worked for an insurance company. I imagine they say, from my experience, no, that's not me. I don't like saying that, especially to my clients. We push for the best we can get. I'm sure you do too. Let's talk a little bit about mass torts. You want to talk about what kind of cases are you taking? Let's say somebody's watching this right now. What kind of mass tort cases are you taking?
I can tell you, right? I'll explain how. I'll explain how it is. And there's one it seems like every day when you watch TV for more than 5 minutes. Mass tort means it's a lot of people. Okay. It's different than a class action. A lot of people understand what class actions are. Yeah. So I give them an example with the differences. Class action is basically one of the ones that happened recently was like the tuna fish. All these big manufacturers of tuna fish decided to fix the prices. So one guy figured out that they were doing something. He became a lead plaintiff. Some lawyer sued all of them for price fixing. And then there ended up being a global settlement. So what happens with the class action is the class representative gets a few bucks.
The guy whose name is on the lawsuit.
Correct. He gets a little bit of money, not much. Mm-hmm. Everybody else gets like a coupon or a few dollars because you get these all the time. Do you want to be part of the class action? And usually you're too busy just like, okay, I'll sign this. And if it's not a lot of work, maybe I'll get a check.
Yeah.
But the class actions, all the money goes basically to the attorneys for fees because they're very expensive to try.
Mm-hmm.
That's a class action. The mass torts are different. Mass torts, the commonality is there's a lot of people. However, if you took a drug, like one of the cases we're working on is the, which drug case?
Tylenol? Valsartan?
I'm not using that one. Which is the one? Let's just use talcum powder, like the baby powder.
Okay.
So people used that for years, women, and it's ovarian cancer. But when you file a claim, some people may have died, so their claim is obviously worth more.
Well, you say they died. They died from
Let's say they died from ovarian cancer after using talcum powder for a long period of time. So their cases could be like the high tier of what the case could be worth. Mm-hmm. Then there's people that took it and they're very, very sick. Mm-hmm. Then there's people that have taken it, used it rather, and they're not that sick. So if there's ever a global settlement, the money would be apportioned based on the person's damages. Not everybody gets the same check, which is the way it should be. If someone's more sick than another, their case should be worth more.
Okay.
But the problem with mass torts, different than, let's say, an auto accident or workers' comp, is the timeline. These cases go on for years. Mm-hmm. And the one commonality between all the different torts that I found is that somewhere along the line, usually a long time ago, the manufacturers knew that their products were defective or that they caused cancer, but they did not care, like Roundup. Why don't they care? Because they make so much money that one, they'll worry about it down the road. Two, even if they have to pay the piper, it doesn't matter. Roundup is the number one weed killer in the world. Why? Because it works. It kills things.
Yeah.
Well, it kills weeds, but it kills people too. Well, we don't care about that. And the reason we know that is because they're so dumb that in their internal when we do discovery, in their internal documents, they talk all about this. But they're like, well, okay, we'll just keep selling it.
Yeah. I remember I bought my first house when I was a lawyer. And my neighbor across the street, he was just like, his name's Dan. He's just like, I hope you're watching this, Dan. He's just like one of those neighbors on a sitcom. He just walked over to the house, always talking to you, just whatever. And one day I was spraying Roundup on the pavers because I didn't want weeds coming up through my pavers. And he goes, that stuff causes cancer, man. And I was like, get out of here, dude. They wouldn't sell a product that causes cancer. And now that I'm thinking about it, I'm like, what a schmuck, Abe. They put cancer in cigarettes, cancer-causing stuff in cigarettes, talcum powder, sunscreen, right? Sunscreen, they had benzene in it, which causes cancer. Benzene doesn't do anything to help improve the sunscreen. It just causes cancer, and they put it in there. And my wife always yells at me, Abe, why don't you put sunscreen on? I'm like, that shit causes cancer. I don't want it. And there's some brands that don't put stuff in there and all that, but I do wear sun protection if anyone wear long sleeve shirts when I'm out. But long story short, I thought my friend was crazy. My neighbor was great. I was like, come on, man, they don't put that stuff. But turns out that Roundup causes cancer. Right. And what did they have? What was that big verdict that came out in California?
There's a year or two ago? Yeah, the first one was like billions, then it got reduced. Yeah. And the way these cases work is that not everybody will see a trial. It's only a handful of people get trials in these cases. But the goal is if there's enough victories by the plaintiffs that they'll try to get a mass settlement. Yeah. So Roundup, who's owned by Bayer, they made a very bad decision when they bought this from Monsanto and didn't realize about all the liabilities because the contract was we assume all liabilities when we take you over. So they didn't do a good job in due diligence, if you ask me. So a lot of the Roundup cases had settled, but they settled very low. They tried to get rid of a lot of the players in the beginning. But there's a lot of claims still out there. And a lot of their MOs, these companies will just fight. They get to the Supreme Court, they get denied, but they try a different angle with a different federal court, and they just keep fighting, and they never want to give up, just like tobacco. Yeah. I had a good friend that was working in tobacco litigation for like 8-10 years before it was finally, that's it. There's no more appeals. And then he got paid. Wow. So it's one thing for the lawyer to wait to get money. Listen, I don't care. I'm still working. But if you're made sick by Roundup or talcum powder and you're sick, and your life is falling apart, you need that money for all the years that you've gone through.
Right. Johnson & Johnson. They've tried to file for bankruptcy.
Right. Then they try that bankruptcy route, 3M with the earplugs. The same. They try every legal tactic. Why? Because their lawyers are smart and go, let's see if we can get you out of this.
Yeah.
That's their job.
Despicable.
But the courts did not, they disapproved the bankruptcy with the, with Johnson & Johnson, but that wasn't good enough for them. So now they're asking for an en banc where they're trying to get all the judges to be on that hearing.
Okay.
So they keep pushing it. Roundup, they lost, but now they have the Supreme Court said we were not going to take it up. The Biden administration said we have no opinion, or rather we don't want you to take it up. So they did take it up, but now they found conflicting federal opinions. They're like, well, now there's a conflict of districts, so now you should bring it up. So they never want to end, and it's bad when I take these calls and I tell them, yeah, it's still going. It's closer than it was before.
Yeah.
Bayer got rid of their CEO. Some people suggested that was maybe because they're tired of their stock price keep taking a dump, and they want to get rid of the litigation because stockholders don't like that.
Yeah.
So there is talk, and there's always ongoing talk of settling cases, with Roundup and a lot of these torts when they're further along. We do the CPAP machines. That's early on.
What's the deal with CPAP?
So CPAP, people have these breathing disorders. They wear these masks, and it helps them breathe at night. And some people, it keeps them alive. The problem is that this foam that is used to make it quieter, so if you're sleeping with somebody, it's not as loud, starts to degrade, and then you start breathing it in, and not a shock, it causes cancer. So then Philips started recalling all these machines.
Wow. Okay.
But those cases are so early on that there's so much that needs to be done before people say, where's my check?
Right.
Because there's been no trials, and they're still doing a lot of discovery. So some of these cases never get to that far, like Zantac causes cancer. But there was a federal judge that threw out the plaintiff's science and said, this doesn't make sense. It's junk science. The cases are over. So that's on appeal. So some people that got cancer from Zantac, they may not have a claim anymore. We're still waiting on that.
And obviously, like I'll just throw out the obvious there is somebody may have cancer, but they don't know for sure that it was Zantac versus Johnson & Johnson talcum powder versus maybe they use a CPAP and talcum powder and sunscreen and all these things. They don't know exactly where it's from, but that's not the key issue. The key issue is, did you use a CPAP machine? Did you get a specific type of cancer? Is that accurate?
Right. So what happens is lawyers start filing these suits. They probably have some medical evidence while the case goes on.
Okay.
But because these cases take years, there's a lot of studies that are always ongoing, and there's more experts that look at stuff. So let's say there's 10 cancers for CPAP. Then as the science goes on, they go, you know what? We can't prove these 5 cancers. Okay. So anybody that we signed up that have one of those cancers, unfortunately, we have to send them a letter saying, we're not saying you don't have a case. We're just saying we're not exploring your cancer. And then the plaintiff pool is now less because now we think these are stronger cases. So that happens all the time. And it's unfortunate when you have to tell people they've been waiting and say, sorry, we're not pursuing your type of cancer anymore because the science doesn't measure up that we could even prove it.
Right.
So it's, that's not a good conversation to have.
Yeah, that's tough. Now, most of these people, do they have to file a lawsuit for the mass tort, most of the people, or is it something that they just open a claim?
It's not like, well, the Philips, if you open a claim, you'll get a new machine. They're not giving you a check.
Oh, really? Okay.
But like something like a Roundup or talcum powder, it's not like me and you file a case for an auto accident or slip and fall or workers' comp, and they could do it on their own and they could get money from insurance company. Absolutely. Insurance company will lowball them, but a lot of people don't hire lawyers and they'll take the money and they'll move on. These cases, no. A client is not writing a demand letter on his own and go, give me $gazillion and I'll settle my Roundup claim. That won't happen.
I guess I'm asking, do they need to, do you file a lawsuit on their behalf?
Right.
Or is it just you open up a claim for them?
We file a lawsuit. Sometimes there's tolling agreements where we have all the information, so at least the statute doesn't go.
Okay.
People in all different states, so there's different statutes. Some people could have a viable claim, but because of their state statute of limitations, they don't. They found out too late, or they knew about it and didn't act on it. So some people don't have claims for that, or they missed the death statute because they just didn't file it under their state law. So
you mentioned with the CPAP litigation, right now the company that made those CPAP machines is offering to replace the CPAP. Do you think that there's going to be money down the road? They're just offering, hey, we'll replace it for now.
Right. So what happens is
they're trying to settle those cases for cheap.
Well, they're not really settling them. There's a website you would go to, and I tell anybody that calls us, is your machine recalled? And if they didn't check, they go to the website, they put in their serial number. And if it says yes, then they register that. I tell them, do not send the machine back because that's evidence that we may need.
Oh.
But if anything, they'll send them a new machine, but they're not giving them money for their illness or their respiratory disorder as a result of it. They'll just give you a new machine.
And I'm assuming they already have some sort of respiratory issue to begin with that they need a CPAP.
Correct.
And this just probably makes it worse.
Correct. Wow. So, some of the people, it depends on what their medical record says. Plenty of people call us. Like I had a couple of cases that they sounded like they met all the criteria. And then we started getting further into it. And they had all these horrible respiratory things even before they had the machine. So the machine's not likely to cause it if they already had all these underlying conditions before.
Gotcha.
So it all depends on when you used it or when you used that product or drug.
Okay.
And what was your medical history before?
Okay.
And you have to hope it's recent enough that they could get the records. So if someone had, ovarian cancer in 1980 and they used talcum powder their whole life, but they don't have the records, we can't prove.
Right.
Those records don't exist anymore. So some people lose a claim because it's too long.
Okay.
So that's how those defendants make a lot of money because they're like, oh, good, you waited too long.
Save money that way. Yeah.
You can't prove your claim.
Right. Wow. Okay. And so right now, just to recap, you're handling CPAP.
So we're handling 3M earplugs. That's what the soldiers, when they were in Afghanistan and Iraq, 3M made these special earplugs. They were supposed to work in battle conditions and also in battle conditions would be live firing and then other parts. There was 2 parts of the earplug, one for one use and one for the other. Okay. The problem is it didn't work. So these people started getting hearing loss. And out of 19 trials, there's been I think 13 or 14 victories on the sides of the plaintiffs, the injured soldiers. And they tried to do bankruptcy too. And the court said no.
Yeah. I mean, what greater cause than protecting our soldiers or veterans from a manufacturer who got paid, I'm sure, millions, if not $1 billion to produce earplugs to protect their ears, and then it didn't work.
Correct.
That's just like they had these guys that were selling body armor, and it was shit body armor that they took to Iraq and Afghanistan. The troops were like, I don't want that body armor. They had their parents buy and ship them body armor from local gun stores here in America because the body armor they got from that company it didn't work. And I think those guys went to jail. So so you do 3M. What else do you do?
We do hernia mesh. A lot of people had surgeries. There's a lot of different mesh. So some people, if they have a hernia and they get a hernia mesh and then they have a complication, they got to get another, surgery to replace that.
Okay.
That doesn't necessarily mean they have a case. It depends what they had replaced.
Okay.
Because there's so many different manufacturers. Some there's actions and claims against. Some of them there aren't.
Okay.
So those are claims that we do as well. I'm trying to think what else we do. But they're popping up all the time. We did Zantac, so we still have the Zantac cases.
Do you have tolling agreements with those Zantac cases?
Right. Some of them, they're tolling agreements, so that way, even if a suit wasn't filed, their statute's protected.
Okay.
And so those are just a few, but there's the next big one is the Camp Lejeune.
That's big.
There's a lot of people that got affected by that.
TV.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm not involved in that directly yet. Hair relaxers. A lot of women use chemicals in their hair. Yeah. And they cause different types of cancer.
Right. We just shot a commercial for that in our studio here. And they're saying that, hair relaxers is for people with curly hair. And they're saying it targeted mostly minorities. Black people, African-American people have curlier hair. They use a lot of hair relaxers. And they're saying there's an issue there right now with hair relaxers. So that's something going on. What else?
That's relatively new. We also have a lot in what's called fire foam. So people that use firefighters or people have used these chemicals are called forever chemicals. And what happens is this chemical is so bad that once it gets into the ground, it starts contaminating the groundwater. So the first trial that's coming up is like for cities and municipalities that have sued about 30 or so defendants because they're of the cleanup costs. Okay. So we're right now taking the firefighters and other people that have used some of these products, transporting it or help disposing it, whether they were on a ship, where they were actually fighting fires anywhere in the world. Some of them are servicemen. Some of them are just firefighters.
And they get cancer from this material.
Right.
And the material damages the environment permanently.
Correct. Because it does, when it goes into the ground, it doesn't dissipate. It's awful. Yeah. And they know, and they don't use it, I don't think, anymore. But because it's been used for so long, there's a lot of people that got sick.
Yeah.
So that's a big litigation that we're doing now as well.
Okay. I got some cool questions for you.
Okay.
This is my Jimmy Kimmel, Johnny Carson card here. So, who would you like to play in a movie? We're going to keep it exciting here. We're going to keep it spicy. Who would you like to play in a movie?
I think James Bond, although not really. I'm really not English. I consider myself 1% English.
Okay.
So maybe that, because he gets all the babes and drives all the nice cars and has all the gadgets. So I'd like that.
You have your law firm logo has a crest on it, right? Like, what's that called? The coat of arms.
Right.
Coat of arms? Yeah. Okay. Cool. So James Bond, I like that. You should have come to casino night then, man.
I should have.
You should have come. I had the tuxedo. I had the white jacket. I had the little red rose lapel pin here. Just ready to go. Okay. Who would you have coffee with, dead or alive? And would you put anything in the cup of coffee as well? Any type of alcohol or liquid?
Well, I don't drink coffee, so I'd have to have.
We got to have a talk about that. You're the only lawyer in the world who doesn't drink coffee. I don't drink
coffee. I like caffeine, but I don't drink coffee. Who would
I like snort coffee on a daily basis. How do you not drink it? Wow.
Yeah, I'm trying to decrease my caffeine intake.
Wow.
But Mountain Dew got me through law school, so I used that for a lot. That was my
Mountain Dew Yellow 5. That's the next mass tort. They've been talking about that causing cancers for years.
I like when they had the original. Now there's like 10 different flavors.
Are there?
Yeah. I think Warren Buffett, only because he's really smart.
We're going to do Mountain Dew then with Warren Buffett? Is that it?
Yeah, I would do that because I'd like to pick his brain.
Okay.
And just copy everything he does with just less money.
Ask him his next stock tip.
Sure,
right?
Absolutely. Why not?
Yeah. He bought Geico with the mindset that Geico stands for Government Employee Insurance Company, Geico. And he bought that with the mindset that it would become the largest insurance company, I think auto insurance company in the world. That's his goal for Geico, which is kind of a pretty massive goal. But if you think about auto insurance, you need to have it to drive. So it's like it's a private company, but the government tells you have to buy it. It's kind of crazy. So it's like a guaranteed customer, I guess, is the weird part. It's like if Coca-Cola, the government said you have to drink at least 2 glasses of Coca-Cola a day. It's a guaranteed customer. It's crazy business. So Warren Buffett, you'd ask him his stock tips. That's what you'd get. Okay. All right, cool. I like it. So Evan, let me ask you a question. What do you like to do on your off time?
When I have off time, I like sports. I like going to the games. I like the local teams.
Okay. Who's your favorite?
Probably the Dolphins the most.
You're not a Heat guy? Are you a Heat guy?
I root for the Heat too. No, I like the Heat.
They're good. I like watching those games. Football. I like football more for the tailgating experience, right? It's like, yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. So you're a masochist then. You're the Dolphins fan?
Right. I've liked it because that was the first football game I ever went to when I moved down here in 78.
Okay.
In the Orange Bowl. So
when did they have that perfect? When did they have that perfect season?
That was before. It wasn't before my time, but I was 6, so I don't count that.
You don't count.
I was living in New York. I knew nothing about football.
Okay. All the haters are like, oh, they only had like X number of games back then, and blah blah blah. It'll never happen again because they have more games than they used to have, and whatever. But anyways, all right, cool. So tell us, how can people watching this get a hold of you, Evan?
Okay, sure. So I use my local number or my toll-free number as my local number, 866-I-SUE. That's 866-478-3968. Or they can email me or text me. I have a lot of numbers. I probably have more numbers than any lawyer, but they all get to me or my staff. So.
Okay, cool. So what we'll do is we'll post your phone. I like that phone number. We'll post that phone number and your website address on the page here. So I think we're good. Thanks for being on the show. It's been awesome. I appreciate you.
Thanks for being on.
Cool. Thanks, man. All right, we good? Awesome. Yeah, we'll